Chongqing again to see High Person at the Nuts. What does that mean? That means we're separating the snobs from the slobs.
See the band High Person, who I don't know too much about, but their name always comes up in discussions of China indie rock. They're one of like the big indies, if that's a thing. And we listened to them all day yesterday.
Oh, that's for you. What the hell? Look at this room. What are you gonna do with it all?
Jump on the bed.
How long have we been coming to Chongqing looking for the right place?
Yeah.
Staying in squalid riverboat houses and...
Well, I'll tell you what I did is I raised the per night price we're willing to pay.
Oh, more money will do.
Until now, we have received thousands of comments and suggestions. We will consider them carefully and comprehensively. In the meantime, we'd like to ask you to keep on communicating and coordinating between one another. We'd also like to thank the press. Your work has hugely helped us with drawing public...
As a veteran music journalist from New York City, how do you find yourself in this situation?
Well, I bought tickets online because nobody gives me stuff for free anymore. And now we're here to see High Person. It's nerve-wracking. What if they don't like my outfit?
Little black number. What is this? It's another hot pot. How many hot pots can you eat in a week?
How many days are there?
So far we've documented about 3. As it turns out, our trips to Chongqing can all be encapsulated in one building. We sleep upstairs, we eat here, and we rock downstairs.
In the basement.
In the basement. It's nice to be home from the big city.
It's lunchtime, that's why it's deserted.
Oh, so it's not haunted.
It's not haunted.
A haunted lunch?
It's haunted by hungry people.
From the big city of Chongqing, we're now out in the countryside, ready to do a live review of the show last night of High Person.
They were really amazing. I mean, we watched enough videos to expect that, but they were really good. And I would say, I mean, sometimes we watch bands that, you know, they're like 5 to 7 people on stage, and we're like, what are all these people doing? It sounds like nothing. But High Person is about 5 people,
yeah,
and it sounds like just a wall of sound coming in. Yeah, in a really impressive way. And I think, I mean, I'm going to come at this from a Western perspective because that's the perspective I have. So if there's Chinese influences I'm not going to get, but it was totally like a mix of sugar cubes, a little bit of, you know, romantic new wave, post-punk, and they just like, they had control of the rock, I would say.
I heard Love and Rockets also. I heard AC/DC.
Yeah. And I think what impressed, because they have like a melancholy sound, minor key.
What do you think the name is?
Ocean Friend Forest.
They have a very ethereal...
It's like a naturalistic, almost gothic kind of.
Yeah, a little shoegazy.
Yeah, very shoegazy.
But with a stompy,
yeah,
anthemic.
Yeah, and I think, it was so impressive that they melded together so well. They had a lot of the main vocalist is amazing. I wrote down. She has shades of Bjork, Chrissy Hyde, Dolores Riordan, Karen O. Every strong female voice. There's a lot of Sleater-Kinney in them too. If Sleater-Kinney had taken voice lessons, I mean, I like the ramshackle of Sleater-Kinney, but the singer of Hyperson, she's got the voice. She's very trained, I think. And I like that they would switch from these kind of intricate harmonies to singing all the singers in unison was like a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
I noticed that they could do. And they had like a very strong control of like switching the mood, switching the sound dynamics. It was just like a very dynamic show overall, I would say.
They were strong. The rhythm section was just like spot.
Oh yeah, I said like he keeps military time. Is what I wrote in my notes.
And which goes with the whole costume persona setup of bleak.
Yeah.
Workman.
On this album, the lead singer's got these two braids with the bangs, which is like a very Chinese communist little girl look with like the military shirt on.
And like a Chengdu countryside. There's a whole like aesthetic of like David Byrne with a big suit. Like there's a decided.
There's presence to it.
Yeah.
Because I wrote down. I thought this was hilarious last night. We'll see what I think of it now. Oh, I hate to make this comparison, but you too.
Oh, I thought that too.
Because it's not
in the anthem.
And there's even like the jangle of that guitar.
Yeah, he was
like if the Edge was cool.
If the Edge was cool and could play guitar.
Yeah, they were just so good, and it is also like even living in China for 8 years, we live a pretty square life because I love Luzhou. Don't get me wrong, YL, we're not gonna move. I love Luzhou, but it's not a cool city.
Luzhou Square. It's pointy like a peninsula.
But it is like, it's always striking when we go to these shows and there's like kids rocking out. There's a sweaty guitarist who took his shirt off. Like, that's also China.
There's all these like goth kids like swathed in like black robes and...
Yeah.
I mean, not robes, but big baggy clothes.
Yeah.
Chains and...
And it's just like, it feels the same as going to concerts in my youth. When you'd like get in a crowd and it'd be all hot and sweaty, but you didn't care because you loved the music. And it does, like, they had such an energy, both the crowd and the audience. Like, I mean, the audience and the band. They were like feeding off each other in a great way. And I used to do this a lot in my live show reviews for the paper. I like to mention...
In New York City.
I like to mention the audience because it's not a record review. It's not just a music review. It's a review of this moment. And the crowd was fully with the band to the point where, like, it's a small club, but they would play the opening jangly notes to the hit, and the crowd would go wild, and like everybody would sing along,
and the banter.
Like it was a total collective.
The banter between the whole band, because everybody would talk to the audience, and the audience would talk back to them. So
it was like a very
that
intimate moment that we got to take part in.
Yeah. And every time we go to the Nuts Club, if it was just like one band, I would say it was a fluke, but like
it always has that feeling of like you're involved in something special.
Yeah.
So if you're in Chongqing, go to Nuts Club. But it really did like it's kind of a joke in School of Rock that Jack Black's character feels this way, but like while it's happening, when you're at a good show, it does feel like one good rock show could change the world. And I think they conveyed that feeling.
Their opening tune was like there's just their again anthemic face of just showing up.
Yeah.
That explosion of like, we're here. Like, you could feel it throughout the crowd and you could feel it in yourself.
Yeah, I mean, they could make so much noise you would feel pushed away, and then they could take it down so quiet that everybody, like, you could hear a pin drop.
And you were in a moment, like this was a thing happening.
Yeah, and that they were talented musicians who really...
Oh, definitely.
They knew their stuff, but it didn't feel technical. It still felt like raw and emotional and open.
Well, there was a lot of like noise rock. There was a lot of Sonic Youth. The things that are typically said as influential to underground Chinese rock was there and proficient, like with years of like, I know how to work my stomp boxes.
Yeah, but it's not just color by numbers. I'm playing the right notes that sometimes sometimes you find.
Well, like a lot of the karaoke, not karaoke, but like sing-song acoustic guitar.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of play like that. I'm hitting the right notes. It's not very exciting.
This was like improv dance at the same time.
It was both precision and only existing in that moment.
Yeah. Powerful stuff. 10
China slaps. It was a good show. They're still on tour. I think this is just the beginning of their tour. So if you are in China, look up where High Person's playing and go.
And we're gonna go see them in Chengdu in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we're gonna go back to the Chengdu show on the 24th.
So it's
in October.
Yeah, so barely. We're not even gonna have enough time to recover. That's Emily with a China slap.
Emily on the road music review. When I was a kid, I found lots of new cool music by listening to the radio. WLIR for life, and going to record stores and just like looking in the bins. And neither of those things exist today, and they definitely don't exist in China. The thing about China that's the same as everywhere else in the world is that the mainstream kind of sucks. There's something to the contemporary indie Chinese scene, music scene, that's very international. Like, there are a lot of foreigners in major bands. And behind the scenes, too, a lot of the labels have foreigners embedded. But also, like, a band will go off to Berlin to cut an album or do a collaboration, as Mimi has done with some girls from New Zealand. Their sound is an everything all at once kind of thing. Like international references you can hear are maybe like a little 9 Inch Nails, a little The Prodigy, but also the internet in general. They had a song, Lucy in the Sky with Dolphins, which I wrote down as Lucy in the Sky with Starfish. Either one is good. They're songwriters, they're fine. South Acid Mimi has kind of a delightful origin story. They are 3 school friends from Kunming, and one of them had a store. And then after she closed the store for the day, they'd kind of like jam out and drink and hang out. And then the store failed, so they figured they'd just be a band instead. They're kind of super noise rock concert as experience. It's like party music if the party was a funeral. Nobody really dances, but they do all appreciate the mood. I think it fits within Chinese artists right now, based on their history in that like the country didn't really open up till the 90s and they got this flood of contemporary and older influences all at once with no context for time. So that the synthesizing that has been a big part of both the music and fine art scene in China since then. But also I think globally, millennial music, because of the internet, just it has everything all at once. And definitely South Acid Mimi partakes in that aesthetic. Basically, the setup is the three women behind samplers with a whole AV component playing vaporwavy brain scans or footage of pollution behind them. The construction of their songs make me envision little magpies getting attracted to a beat over here, a sound over here, this snippet of audio over here, and stitching them together into their own little cloth nest. I don't always know when people are on drugs, but I'm pretty sure that they weren't, if that's what you're thinking. South Acid Mimi is definitely a band that references older forms of music, from dance to electronica to trance to garage. What I do remember from my club kid days, all two of them, is that this kind of music is all about manipulating a mood rather than drawing you into the melody. And they really did that. And this mood was sinister. But the thing about like experiencing that as a collective is really, really exciting, which I think is really interesting in that it's not necessarily like multiculturalist inclusive. It comes across to me as more of a placelessness. And actually it's the same mainstream as in the US or the UK, or, you know, it's all Taylor Swift and, I don't know, Ed Sheeran. Who else is popular? If it's popular in your hometown, it's popular here. But there's also a strain of like very traditional sounding, government approved Chinese mainstream that isn't present in other countries as much, I guess. That I feel like the Chinese indie scene is a very interesting, it's not like a direct rebellion against that, but it is like, it does not make reference to what's government approved at all, while also not directly rebelling against that standard. Maybe that places the internet, which is also very contextless and placeless. And if you're approaching that without thinking, it can come off pastiche and weird, but I think Mimi handles that very well, of like they have a definite point of view while not limiting themselves to any especially kind of Chineseness, but or really letting themselves be nailed down into any categorization. But what they're doing is also totally new and totally of itself. I would say it's a band for the internet age, but the internet is technically as old as me. But it's a band that couldn't exist without the internet. And I think it finds artistry in that rather than just yelling at people on social media. Maybe all this sounds like the show was not a lot of fun, which is wrong. I mean, while the show is happening, there's not theory, there's just like bass in your chest, and everyone is kind of transfixed by these trancey melodies and harmonies. And then, like, I mean, even within their own oeuvre, they have songs that feel like pop songs, like 4 or 5 minutes long with an identifiable verse chorus, and then they have songs that are just noise, in the mode of like when people want to make fun of pretentious musicians in film and movie. It just is like layers and layers of sound. It's really slippery to pin down what South Acid Mimi does, because it's not a pop song, and it's also not an AV performance. maybe I'm needlessly complicating it, but I think it's impressive in a whole different way, and is a level of musicianship, but also writerly narrative control that was really it felt like you were a part of something, and it felt like you were a part of something more than just a pop song. So for me, some 40-year-old American lady living in the sticks of China, how do I find new music? Because I still want to. I didn't grow out of that. I mean, the girls are kind of bop, the women, they kind of like bop around behind their mixers, but there's no instruments. They're really just pressing buttons, but it is like music. It is a talent, as opposed to just being DJs. To clarify, I am 100% saying these women are musicians. I guess what I mean by instruments is there's a physicality to playing a guitar or piano that in a live presentation feels like you're watching music being made. And they can sing these delicate 3-part harmonies, or they can drone in unison, or they can just like scream. From song to song, they're not beholden to any one genre, but it does still all feel cohesive. Equally disturbed, but in a fun way by the raggedy noise and the flicker of images behind the band, and they were definitely manipulating the art in real time, but the physicality of pressing buttons on a sampler, even as you're feeling the music, I think I would argue it's more akin to writing a piece of fiction rather than creating. I don't know that you need to define it, or that I need to define it. Just go to the show. It's been a challenge, because it is also, it's not in English online either. We found ~ťa'oᗰEᗪY because we are subscribed on Facebook, I guess, to the club that they were going to. And like, we were intrigued by the name, so we looked them up. They themselves sang, but they also had sampled vocals in English, Chinese, and Japanese, kind of refusing you any linguistic continuity or any context or place or culture to grab onto, because they are the context. That's all you need. But now it is like, we have these threads that we follow, like the various clubs that we know host indie music, and then we have to like look up every band that's coming to town to see if we like them or not, which is, I'm not complaining, it's a fun thing to do, but I'm just curious, like how do all these kids know about this music? I guess it's always been a case-by-case basis. But I feel like I used to have like touch points of people who I could trust who were going to suggest new music, like Malibu Sue. That's a deep cut for all you Long Islanders out there. I don't know, but I guess the hunt has always been part of the fun. And when you find a gem like ~ťa'oᗰEᗪY, that's really cool. There are some bands, when you see them, they have the album, they play the album, it sounds exactly the same, and that's what you want. But Cars live is such a vastly different experience. They picked up their instruments and then there was just noise for like an hour and a half. And they weaved in and out from just kind of these sonic collages into like the pop songs that you recognize from the album. It was really exciting. At this point, the original lineup of Cars has been apart for longer than they've been together. So this tour, it was a hot ticket. Tickets sold out while I was buying them. And that wasn't... They're veterans of the scene. Arguably, they helped create the scene for more than a decade, but they still look like a bunch of art school little weirdos. They're such icons, and this tour was so momentous that, of course, the crowd was like really into it. But like every song, when they broke into those opening bars, every song was the hit. Every song was a hit. And even the security guard to the backstage, who was totally uninterested in the first band, he got out his cell phone and was recording some of the concert too. On CD, they're a decent post-punk indie band, which is remarkable for China. And it's, remarkable. And then live, they turn into this like noise machine. Not just like indie cool, like they're Sonic Youth's favorite Chinese band, famously. But they really have a New York in the 70s cool kind of, and the front man, he has that awkwardness of David Byrne without being quite so self-effacing, and the kind of swagger of Lou Reed if he didn't hate you as well. And it just was like so captivating to watch. Li Wei-se, the bassist, he just is like long and lanky, and his bass is also long and lanky, and this mop of hair that's a little bit curly. And Li Qing, the drummer, she just is a machine. She has that like boom, 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 boom. It's almost like big band jazz drumming, and from then on, any style she can command it, and she's raising her arms over her head and just pounding like mad, although not in a messy way, always very, very controlled and very part of the moment. While the frontman and guitarist Zhong Shouwei, I think is his name. Now I forget. I'll just say frontman. Zhong Shou. Let me get this name. Zhong Shouwang is the lead guitarist, and he's been the member. He's kept Cars going this whole time. But he was just all in black. This skinny little cool dude wearing sunglasses at night. Shouwang was really, he was a star. Like, it's weird to talk of like indie star presence, but he had indie star presence, I think. Lou Reed cool with a little bit of David Byrne angularity. These songs are more than a decade old, but they all felt really fresh. And I mean, of course, every song was greeted with the fans' approval. And they go back and forth, they weave in and out of the real heavy noise, and then they bring it back to the pop, and you can almost sing along. Kind kind of effortlessly almost. They were really, it didn't seem like this was a band that essentially broke up 10 years ago. But the songs themselves were living organisms on stage, weaving in and out, like I said, into the melody and then devolving into noise. And even like bleeding into each other. There was no real banter between songs. They just kind of like hung out with their instruments. These songs were still living organisms, and they played together really. They were in concert. And in true noise rock fashion, it was not always pleasant, the sound they were making, but it became like an ecstatic pain almost. The frontman picked up like a violin bow and was just kind of wailing on his guitar at one point, and it was really exciting. And also at the same time, like, they would pass the solo from one to another. I brought up jazz right now, inadvertently. It was not jazz sounding, but it was just the structure or lack of structure, the improvisation. Talk myself into a corner. What is happening? And I think part of all three of them in different ways in their side projects go more into kind of experimental and drone and sound collage. So I think this is in a pop way where they can experiment and push the limits of what is music. And it was just, I mean, these songs are still so vital, and it doesn't feel like a band going through the motions. So it was really exciting to watch. But it actually between the three instruments and the voice, they had a very like carefully layered sound. Like if the bass was like washy and echoey, the guitar would be very staccato and sharp, and they just like had these careful layers within the big sound. And I mean, it's only three people, but it was just like, it almost like blew the crowd away. But of course they ended with Zhongnanhai. Which is their big kind of underground for all of indie rock in China anthem. And as is customary, because it's a Communist Party headquarters and a brand of cigarettes, the crowd chucked cigarettes at the band as they played. It's funny to watch cigarettes being thrown because they're so light. It's kind of a pathetic little flight. But it was a whole night of coming together, and then this like cathartic, we are rock and roll. Cars on CD was like a really fun find. We were really excited when however we came across the internet. But we've listened to those albums so much over the years, and then to see them live and to see that to see it as not just catchy tunes, but like almost an act of rebellion and dissidence. It was so exciting. It was so much fun, and I'm so glad we snapped up those last 2 tickets. And then, it was just almost an afterthought to come out and do We Can Listen, You Can Listen, You Can Talk as the encore. Just like a quick little, all right, we love you, goodbye, go home. But it was like our ears were ringing
谢，我们是成都本地的返校人。一般。
They are scrappy. ~Fan is a three-piece from Chengdu, and they are very much grunge. Their name is a very Chinese word. It means the day scheduled for school children to come in during vacation to get their homework checked. Although I saw it translated elsewhere as homecoming. Although they, I think, translate it as riot in school. Places that translate it as homecoming list them next to Spider-Man: Homecoming. They obviously owe a big debt of influence to not just Nirvana, but Dinosaur Jr., Sonic Youth, and the whole grunge landscape. People who are familiar with the live music scene in China have reliably told me the audience for this is college kids. Not anyone older than that. So Peter and I are often the oldest people in the club, besides the bands themselves sometimes. And while the 90s, numerically are very far away, the alt grunge scene of 90s America is still very alive in present alternative Chinese rock. The band's a local Chengdu band, and it's always fun to see the hometown band in their city. It's as if they were imported from Seattle straight to Chengdu almost. Researching this band was a little difficult because they're actually too small for Douban, which is like, for lack of a better comparison, Chinese IMDb for all media. But they are on an app that I just found called Xiami, and they even have some of their songs behind a paywall, so I hope that means they're getting paid. They had simple chords, fast riffs, and a banging drum beat that we didn't even know how to play our instruments, but that didn't stop us from forming a band kind of energy. Even their look is very Seattle from the 90s. The lead singer even had that Kurt Cobain pink Kool-Aid dyed hair, and he just struck such a curt posture. Flannel and frizzy hair, which seems to be a signifier in China of grunge or alternative music, which I think is interesting, having frizzy hair myself. Their songs were very energetic with distorted guitars and just a bounding rhythm. They had song titles like Sick Kid, or The Person Who Died at the Party, or Youth Arson, or A Room with No Doors. So they're working through some angst. The rest of the crowd is all young people, but it's an interesting youth movement based on a youth movement from my youth. Which is interesting for me because that's when I was in middle school in America, was when all these bands were popular. And so to come over here and then see these bands playing live, and it's not a tribute band at all. And they also kind of incorporated a 70s punk sound. They actually did a cover of the Stooges' I Wanna Be Your Dog. Pretty good job of it as well. I mean, I joke that like the lead singer was doing a Kurt Cobain imitation, but like he was doing his thing. He wasn't trying to be somebody else. He was just very heavily influenced. So it is like very living and important still, and not at all a throwback. I mean, always at these shows, the kids are really enthusiastic, but they love their hometown bands. They only formed in 2019, so they have 2 EPs out. Uncle Foreigner likes weird. We like to make it, we like to watch it, we like to support it. So with that in mind, we bring you our review of Round Eye, a punk outfit from Shanghai made up of expats, and they recently played Nuts Club in Chongqing. Before they came out, they played a promo for their last album, which is a Trump impersonator denouncing the band.
And we had Trump. That happened. You know,
Yeah.
That happened.
Yeah.
And that happened because the people wanted it. It's just what's going on.
Which should give you an idea of what their sense of humor is like. And I have to say, now that Trump is no longer the president, it's no longer upsetting. It's only hilarious to see Trump impersonations, so that was like really fun. I would say the whole band has like this really good, fun, welcoming energy. Chauncey, the front man, he's totally a front man. He's like Henry Rollins if he felt more David Lee Roth about himself, I think. My favorite song, Julie Got a Suntan. I noticed Livio in particular was just like dancing up and down the bass line. And it was just like a real groove, and you could tell they were having fun and we were having fun, and it was just all very exciting. From what I've noticed, like I'll see a tour poster come out, and like in America it would be like 26 cities, 50 cities, and in China it's often just like 4 cities.
Yeah. Why? I don't know. Okay, sorry.
And the thing about a veteran band is the whole show is a show. It's not just like, let us play you these songs, but there's like real vibing with the crowd between songs, who needs to tune, detune, retune, change instruments, does their thing, but the rest of the band members vamp. They never forget that they're on stage and that they're entertaining you.
I brought you up here. That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. How about this guy, like? Want to start out? Yeah, that's what I fucking love right there. So, anyway, what I was trying to do, I was trying to see if one of you knew the words to this song. Now, we're gonna find out right now. You say anything you want to these fucking lovely people. Anything, like the first thing that comes to your mind. Say it. Try. Actually, what I really wanted to hear was, Tommy!
The show was a Sunday night of a holiday weekend, and because of that, it was maybe not as well attended as it should have been. It was maybe like 50, 70 people, but every single one of those people was happy to be there, or more than happy. There was one girl in particular wearing a baby doll dress who was just like, it just seemed like she was gonna bounce out of her skin for how much fun she was having. And it was like, they should have the biggest crowd because they're too much fun. But it's seeing them in such an intimate space, it really felt like something special. We got like a secret performance. But it's definitely a recommend. If Round Eye comes to your neighborhood, drop everything, go. So do you guys have day jobs?
Yeah, I'm a music teacher.
Okay. And
I'm an architect.
Oh.
I'm a teacher as well.
Okay. And do your employers know that you have this other life?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. To the sugar. But I mean, actually, I got kind of lucky with mine. Like with my past school as well. We used to invite a lot of foreign bands to come over to China to tour the mainland. And some of them are pretty well known in punk circles like Descendants and DC and stuff like that. What's cool about my school is that like they're open to these musicians coming in and meeting the kids and having small acoustic shows or answering
That's
questions.
amazing.
Yeah,
I can't imagine being like a school child and like being
I
introduced
know, right?
to like punk royalty.
Nobody came to my school. In my
Yeah.
school, it was just like retired baseball players that would come around.
Yeah.
But like, or an astronaut or something.
We spoke to the band after the show, and Livio was like, usually we have more people than this. Usually our concerts are more well attended, which I kind of get of like when the reporter comes. The reporter, you want to put your best foot forward, so maybe it's a little disappointing, like you don't get your usual crowd, but I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun anyway. I like to be in on the underground, so it's all about me. It made me feel special.
In terms of size,
Yeah.
compared in relation to Shanghai is over 24 million people. So compared to the city and what it should be, it's actually relatively small. It's quite small, especially in the niche music that we play. We're like a rock and roll kind of punk thing.
Yeah.
Our tendencies. With metal and electronic music, it's massive. It's a massive city, or folk music.
Okay.
And what? Jazz. And jazz too.
Yeah.
But for what we do, it's quite small, and it's supportive, and it's hard to say competitive because we can't possibly be competitive with the local bands.
I would say their sound is like, it's hard to describe because it's they have promiscuous influences with everything from, the Residents, the Mothers of Inventions, Dead Kennedys.
Ladies and gentlemen, I got the blues! White blues! Blue blues! Communist red blues!
Everything that sounds fun and loud, but they have a definite point of view. The songs they played in the concert were more, they have some experimental stuff on their albums. This was more straightforward, just straight up punk rock. We'll give you a loud and noisy show.
I got the blues! White blues! Blue blues! All right!
I would say their playing ability is such that they're all really good in a way that seems effortless, which is significant because punk music it can be celebrated for its shambolicness and for not being able to play your instruments.
One, two, three, four.
What are your future plans for the band, for yourself, for your life?
Well, I guess we're going, once all of the restrictions let up, we're gonna go back to San Pedro and record with Mike Watt, because we recorded the last one with him.
Yeah.
And just continue to release music and, make new friends.
Don't be sad, what you see, what you
They're foreign, they're punks, and they're not gonna let anybody stop them from rocking and rolling. This is Round Eye. Okay. Let me clap for you first. Ready?
I got you.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm here with the members of Round Eye, and can I have you guys introduce yourselves real quickly?
Chachi, guitar, singer.
Livio, bass. James, guitar.
And obviously you are not Chinese, so can you tell me where you're all from?
I'm from Chicago.
I am Italian, come from Pisa.
I'm Irish. I come from Dublin.
Okay. But you're a Shanghai-based band, and you've been playing since 2011?
2012.
2012, okay. So let's start by talking a little bit about the Shanghai music scene. Can you guys tell me a little bit about that?
Currently? Now?
Yeah.
You guys want to?
You go ahead. We have more experience.
All right. Well, what exactly you want to know about it?
Like, are there a lot of bands? Is it supportive? Is it competitive? Is it a mix of foreigners and Chinese?
Okay. Well, in terms of size,
Yeah.
compared in relation to Shanghai is over 24 million people. So compared to the city and what it should be, it's actually relatively small. It's quite small, especially in the niche music that we play. We're like a rock and roll kind of punk thing.
Yeah.
Our tendencies. With metal and electronic music, it's massive. It's a massive scene of folk music.
Okay.
And what?
Jazz.
And jazz too.
Yeah.
But for what we do, it's quite small, and it's supportive, and it's hard to say competitive because we can't possibly be competitive with the local bands when it's that's actually probably better for another question, but it's a very, very difficult thing to be a foreign band in China.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole lot of different kinds of rules and parameters that you have to go through.
Yeah.
So, obstacles.
Anything specific, like some difficulties you guys
The
face?
Baopi,
Yeah.
the registration for every single show, no matter how small or shitty the bar is, you still have to go through the government. For instance, we were just in Hainan. It's a city in South China, or island. And we had 3 dates set up in Sanya, Wanning, and Haikou, which is the capital of that province. And Haikou got the Baopi for the city, but then the government said no to the show because we didn't have the Baopi for the province.
Oh no.
And it's just a lot of loopholes like that. And it changes every year.
Yeah.
Every year the foreign band needs to get some other document or some other tax that we have to pay or something. And it always changes which provinces. And that's a very uniquely foreign band problem. It's just gotten worse since we started, so yay.
Have there culturally been any challenges, like getting along with other musicians in your scene, or?
I wouldn't say that. No,
Yeah.
it's because we're all celebrating and doing rock music, right?
Yeah.
So so we're all on the same page when it comes to that.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of touring, from what I've noticed, like I'll see a tour poster come out, and like in America it would be like 26 cities, 50 cities, and in China it's often just like 4 cities.
Yeah. Why? I don't know. Okay, sorry.
How does that affect, I guess, how you can make a living?
Well, okay. So the big difference with tours here and tours over anywhere in the West is that you'll notice a lot of these tour posters that they're playing specifically weekends.
Yes.
It's economical. Mm-hmm. That's why they do it, to get the most people to come into the show. And I understand that.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So they have to come back, work, and then on the weekends they'll go out and do their thing. I guess the benefit of how bands play consecutive dates, Monday through Sunday in Europe and in America is probably because of the driving culture. It's probably because they have their own band, their own gear, their own, and they just go day to day to day. I'm not really sure. I don't know why it's such a weekend thing here. India does the same thing. It's only in the weekend.
I guess it's just a culturally.
Like they don't go out on Mondays or Tuesdays.
Yeah. Okay.
So, like our friends of ours, they're called Dirty Fingers. I always heckle them because they're always like, we're going on tour. And I'm like, yeah, but you get to come home and take a shit in your own bathroom on Monday. You know what I mean? You can't call that a tour. You can't call that a tour. So.
Okay. I
don't know, did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, okay. I think that. So do you guys have day jobs?
Yeah, I'm a music teacher.
Okay. And
I'm an architect.
Oh.
I'm a teacher as well.
Okay. And do your employers know that you have this other life?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
To their chagrin. But actually, I got kind of lucky with mine. Like with my past school as well. We used to invite a lot of foreign bands to come over to China to tour the mainland. And some of them are pretty well known in punk circles like Descendants and DC and stuff like that. What's cool about my school is that like they're open to these musicians coming in and meeting the kids and having small acoustic shows or answering
That's amazing.
I
can't imagine being like a school child and like being introduced
right?
to like punk royalty.
Nobody came to my school. In my school, it was just like retired baseball players that would come around.
Yeah.
But like or an astronaut or something. Nobody would rock and roll.
Yeah.
So my kids, they've met Steve McKay of the Stooges. They met Mike Watt. They met Twink. It's really fantastic.
That's really cool. And speaking of Steve McKay, I read in another interview that when you first came to China, did you meet him?
I met him in Shanghai.
Okay.
It was before Round Eye was formed.
Yeah.
He was playing with an avant-garde noise group called Cicada.
Okay.
And I just sent him a letter as a fan. I didn't have a band or anything. I was in a punk band for about 10 years called Libyan Head Squad in Florida.
Okay.
And we did all that touring over there. But then when that was done, I thought I was kind of past that, right?
Yeah.
And so I saw Steve was coming, and I'm a huge Stooges fan. And so I just sent him a letter, just saying, hey, thank you for coming to Shanghai, can't wait for the show. And Scott, the leader of Cicada, was like, hey man, what's going on? You want to go get dinner? I was like, yeah, okay, let's go get dinner. And so we had dinner. I met Steve, I met Scott, and got to talking. We had to, it was just a nice dinner. And he goes, look, we need a bass player for Xi'an. You want to play? And I was like, yes. And I had to work the next day, so I just called off of work, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. So that was my first performance ever in China, was playing in Xi'an with Steve's band.
That's really cool.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I know in my experience living here, there is like experiences you might have with other expats that had you been in your home country, you may not have like even nodded at each other. Do you feel like you had more access to that kind of experience because you were in China, or?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
So like in China, I feel like there's sometimes a special connection between expats that maybe you wouldn't have spoken to each other had you both been in your home country.
I see.
So do you feel like being an expat in China has given you different opportunities in that way?
I think, whenever you meet someone from wherever, even if it's someone that has a completely different background from yours, well, we are both here for the same reason, so we kind of share something. We have something in common anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's already something that can start a conversation at least. And sometimes, if you share more than that, so like what we have in common, like music, then it can become, a true friendship later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your musical backgrounds, each of you? I mean, you've been quiet. Let's start with you.
I literally just grew up on what I'd been hearing from the beginning. And for me, my father was a musician.
Okay.
So he played bass guitar for a band in Dublin called the Radiators from Space. So I literally was just listening to a lot of...
It's an awesome band. It's literally, I mean, he's talking it down. That band was, they were like friends with U2. They were like one of the first Irish punk bands in the 70s. They're on TV and shit.
But my dad would make mixtapes, and it was just mostly Boomtown Rats or Prince or Thin Lizzy or Dire Straits. So, and then I just started listening to more and more.
Okay. Cool. And how about you?
I played in a bunch of different bands, playing pretty much all possible genres, from metal to punk, Afrobeat. My last band before leaving Italy was a big Afrobeat band, like 12 people in a band. Played original ska, reggae. And that's what I've always liked, trying to play and listen to something new, something different, without getting stuck on one thing.
Yeah.
And when I met these guys, I wasn't particularly into punk, and I wouldn't say Round Eyes is a punk band, which I liked, because again, I'm not a huge, let's say, original traditional punk fan. So what I liked about the band is that this kind of idea of experimenting and exploring other ways. Of course, it's the mold is punk, but I like that, and that's what we're trying to do. And I guess having such a different background in me kind of probably helps also.
You're just mad that you can't grow a mohawk.
That's very true.
And how about yourself?
I was in a punk band, one band for 10 years in Florida called Libyan Hit Squad. And, so I was part of the DIY community in the underground of America. And that's where I learned how to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And what's great about that is that the first release that we had was the last release of my previous band. So it was a split LP with my last band and the first EP of this band. And what's great is that throughout all those years of touring in the States, a lot of those people are still working in the underground. So I got to connect, and it just expanded the net, right? And so, but yeah, that's my background. I was in a touring band before this.
Okay. And do you feel like that DIY experience has helped you kind of navigate putting together your own tours in China?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I still do it exactly the same. I mean, back then there wasn't any WeChat and social networking device or platforms.
Yeah.
But it's exactly the same.
And how would you say? So playing China versus playing other countries, are there any big differences besides the bureaucratic paperwork over here?
Gear.
Yeah.
Hauling your own shit. A lot of the bands out here, they're like, oh, we have to tour. It's so hard to get the train. I'm like, dude, you have no idea. You have to haul your own speakers, man.
Yes.
Think about it.
Yeah.
The drums, you have to bring that. Everything.
It's definitely a commitment.
Yeah.
Loading in a certain time, sound checking.
You know what I mean? Oh, dude, and even a sound check to me is kind of like luxury. You know what I mean? There's like a shithole dive over in whatever, Oregon, right? And there's no sound check there. Sound check is when the bartender shows up, right? I mean, it's just funny.
Yeah.
I think you're very pampered here in Asia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot easier.
That's
Japan, because they all have their own backline. You're going to sound like it's a pretty good sound system, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I kind of prefer when we tour in the West because we bring our own gear, so we know what we're going to sound like every single night. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm using a PV tonight and then an Orange tomorrow and then a Marshall the next day. They're very different sounds, these amps, Mm-hmm. And I do appreciate that. I mean, yeah, you got to haul it in there, but whatever. At least you know what you're going to sound like.
And how's your reception with Chinese audiences?
It's good. Right?
It varies.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would say some crowds are there because it's white people and playing some loud music.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
And they are having a great time, but they're not there because they want to see a punk show.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're just there for the novelty of watching four
But
do something.
sometimes it's the opposite. Like even last night we were in Chengdu at Jabbar. It was a great place, and people were just having a lot of fun. They that's why they went there. That's why they came, because they wanted to see punk show or metal show. That doesn't matter, but just they wanted to see like loud live music.
Yeah.
So you get both. But for instance, of course, this is different when you travel or when you work elsewhere. Usually, people come to the show because they know that there will be some sort of a punk show. Maybe they don't know us. Most likely, they will not know that we are Round Eye from China. But they know that at that place they will go. They will, have punk shows or rock and roll shows. So it's a very different crowd. So here you get both sides of the spectrum, I would say.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. So here, moving abroad and living abroad for so long, a lot of your songs are very political. Do you find that your politics have changed since moving to China?
I'm now, since moving to China, I was pretty ignorant of what China was all about. I mean, all I knew was that, yes, it was communist, but I didn't really know what that meant. And then living here, and then, being under that microscope a few times with the Ministry of Culture, you start to really kind of appreciate especially the freedom of press and stuff like that, of expression and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I took it for granted back when I lived in the States, and now it's like really at the drop of a hat that could be taken away, and for the weirdest reasons too. So, but yeah, when it comes to Chinese politics, I didn't really know what it was until I lived here. I had to come here to find out.
Okay. And how about your view of American politics? Has that changed?
No. It got worse. It got so much worse. God, it's so crazy over there right now.
Yeah.
On all levels.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother's Dominican.
Okay.
And my father is of Swedish descent, but he's first generation American. So I grew up with a bicultural family. So I was always kind of open-minded with that stuff, but I don't know. I just can't believe how much shit has happened in the past 10 years with the States. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And how about you guys with your home countries?
If my political views have changed?
Yeah, if your political views of Italy or Ireland have changed since you live abroad.
I would say it's pretty much the same. Again, I didn't know pretty much anything about China. Then start living here, you slowly start to understand a bit how it works. And I would say if I wasn't in a band, I wouldn't even be exposed to that.
That's true.
Right? So
that's
to the censorship.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So you have your job. If you do your job and you're regular and you're legal and everything's perfect, you don't really have any, you don't get in touch with anything political, really.
Yeah.
So the only thing that happened to me personally is really with the band, because of course we say what we want to say or we do what we want to do, and there's not a like a blueprint for that. So we kind of go wherever we want, and that's where someone's going to say, maybe you shouldn't do that, or you cannot say these things. So yeah, that's and again, I learned throughout over 7 years in China.
How about you?
In Ireland, I think not much really has changed too much. Like when I went back 2 years ago, it was the same place it was before. People weren't necessarily any less or any more complacent than they were, but for the most part, I guess it felt like a bit of more of a brighter atmosphere.
Okay.
For the most part, so yeah.
Cool. And do you feel like, having been reprimanded, knowing what the consequences are, do you feel yourself pulling back ever, or
No.
No.
You have to, in a way. You have to kind of limit because otherwise you can get in serious trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody wants that. So in a way, we know where the limits are,
and we kind of understand of what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Usually when it comes to like repercussions like that, it usually comes from it's a reaction to something, right? And it comes from the top down.
Okay.
So like the cops, just the regular cops on the street, we're not worried about them. It usually has to be reported to them. It has to be brought to their attention by somebody.
I see.
Like for instance, we had Harley's. We had a gig at this shitty little dive bar in Shanghai called Harley's. I like Harley's. It's a great bar. It's a shitty dive bar. I'm sorry. But the point of me saying it's a shitty dive bar, it's not in any ways like a proper live venue. You know what I
Right.
mean?
It's
Where
not a cultural force.
Right. And so you're just entertaining a bunch of drunks, 100 drunks at a bar. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody called the cops on them because it was being ticketed. And it was just like, we were taking tickets at the door.
Mm-hmm.
And so the business right next door called the cops on us. And then the Ministry of Culture, not the police, the Ministry of Culture came and said, if the show continues, we will shut your bar down.
Wow.
And so it usually comes from vindictive motherfuckers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you never really know. And so...
So it's not even something you said, it was just...
No. It was just that we were there.
Yeah.
And taking ticket money.
Yeah.
And when it comes to stuff like that, we had a poster that got us in a lot of trouble because it was, I don't know if you saw it.
I read about this, yeah.
That poster was, it had a young pioneer girl with her uniform on and just blood spurting out of it. It's not exact, I don't even know if that'd fly in PC America either. But I mean, we got in trouble for that, and I had a very long meeting with the chief of Ministry of Culture in Shanghai, and they explained to us that, like, okay, you can't do this, but they gave us a warning, But they therefore shut down every single show that happened on that tour.
What's funny is that it's not really about what we say, because honestly, if they really knew what we were saying, definitely we would get in trouble. Because the lyrics of many of our songs, especially the new album, are very political.
Yeah.
Very explicit.
Yeah.
So it's never because of what we say, right?
Well, also because with any show, anytime we have to submit our lyrics, which is basically every show, we have to submit 3-hour video of the lyrics, everything.
Yeah.
I change the lyrics. You know what I mean? I just totally alter them, and they're not really listening. They're looking for the easy find.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you think that's common practice to submit fake lyrics?
Yeah, super. I remember when we brought Millions of Dead Cops here. Millions of Dead Cops, a name like that's easily you're not coming into this country.
Yeah.
But they usually go by acronyms on all of their flyers. It's just MBC, right?
Yeah.
So on the paperwork, I have the actual paperwork too. It says millions of delicious candies, and it worked. And they got their legalization.
That's funny.
So, yeah, I don't know. And again, if we were singing in Chinese, that would change things. Like bands like SMZB and these guys actually do get in a lot of trouble. They get blackballed from any social platform. But what I admire about them is that they continue to do so.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like from the outside to be a Chinese punk band is a huge risk.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a foreigner, you have a little more leeway.
For sure. Yeah. And SMZB, God bless them. They stick to their guns.
Yeah.
And I admire that.
Cool. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about your music videos, because that's kind of how we first really knew who you were, and I really enjoy them. I think they're so fun. I know you work with Alessio Alvazat. Yeah. How does that collaboration work? How did that work?
How did I meet him? How did we meet him?
I don't know. I think it's just common friends. I think through the comedy clubs, maybe.
Yeah, Alessio he later found a little bit of fame in China with his Mama Hoo Hoo videos.
Yeah, that's where I know him from. Yeah.
But when we met him, that really didn't take off yet. So it was like, I can't remember how we met him, but we just became fast friends, and he was a fan of the band. And so we just started working together. Mm-hmm. And so anytime he had like a new toy that like a new drone for his camera, he was like, hey, you mind if I make a video and just try it out with you guys? And we just collaborated.
And so how much creatively are the videos your idea, or are they his idea, or are they? It
was we would work together.
Okay.
But when it comes, because if you notice with Mama Hoo Hoo videos, they're very wholesome and they're they're very nice, whereas our videos are very gnarly.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then we've had many meetings where I would be like, all right, how about we get Jesus Christ with titties and like crucify him with like somebody's selling him a beer while he's crucified, and unless he'd be like, well, let's try it this way. So it'd be like push and pull like that.
Yeah.
So usually we have the story kind of the storyline.
Okay.
Some ideas like crazy, and then with him talking to him, we just kind of curb it.
That makes sense. I mean, what I like about them is that they're almost like a grotesque visual style, but it does.
That was probably us.
We like that style, that kind of grotesque, kind of comic, but not really in a way dark. It's all of that. It's all our references.
Yeah.
But man, Alessio's he's brilliant when it comes to his just production work.
Yes.
He's really good.
Okay. Let's see. I think that might be all. Oh, do you have any good stories from the road that you want to share?
In China?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to think about that. I mean,
Because I mean, when you tour in China, again, it's very easy. It's very very smooth. It's never really, and eventually you can just get either we miss a flight or we had to carry him like 2 days ago. But these are not good stories.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Oh man, what about Cambodia?
Oh my god.
But that's not a good story.
Yeah,
it sounds like it might be a good story though.
Awful day.
So we have a lot of bad memories.
Oh.
I think the biggest thing that happened to us when it comes to like run-ins with the police and stuff like that, is that boys tour.
Yeah.
That was just insane, because the reason it was so insane is that the stampede had just happened on the Bund that killed like 36 people when they trampled each other to death. You remember that?
Yeah.
So that happened, and our tour was happening a week after that. And so they were starting to scale down any sort of mass gathering because they had to react somehow.
Yeah.
And so that was also conducive to canceling the tour, along with the poster. But when things got really, really kind of nerve-wracking was that we continued the tour anyway. And we decided to not do it in proper venues because we couldn't. So we did it in practice spaces and in bomb shelters.
Okay.
And word of mouth. So we had everybody just turn off their phones before they came into the show, and then you could come in. And we had the boys, who were like the first wave punk band of the UK. And so we held these 3 shows in Beijing, and Vice came and did a small segment on the Beijing show. ကိᕼIᒪOᔕOkiᕼITA was there of subs, and it was fantastic that it was I think the thing that I really had to commend the boys on was that they kind of just went with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was so surprised at how well they took that. Because the hammer really came down on them the day they arrived.
Yeah. I guess I'm curious, like, bringing these American bands and these international bands over here, what's their reaction?
It's usually all the same, except it's all awe, and it's all like, oh wow, I didn't know it was like this, and some of them are really kind of ridiculous. I remember the Dickies were like,
for instance,
they don't have Chinese food here. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, where's the General Tso's chicken? And I was like, so for the rest of the tour, he was like, so there's no Chinese food in China because they didn't have this orange chicken.
That's funny.
But it's for the most part, it's been fantastic. They all really, really enjoy it. And hopefully we can continue to do that after this COVID mess cleans up.
Yeah. Do you guys consider yourself, or Do you have more fun touring versus being in the studio or making music videos?
I have more fun touring outside of China.
Yeah.
I always say this, like, you know, we always perform under a glass ceiling out here. So there's really, it's very limited what we are able to achieve. Because they specifically will not sign foreign bands onto these labels like Modern Sky and Maybe Mars. I've gotten specific emails saying foreigners are not, you know.
Will they give you a reason for that?
It's probably because
we don't sing in Chinese.
Well, it's not just that, because Joyce I sing all in English.
But they're Chinese.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. If we sang solely in Chinese, we still would not be able to get on there. I think it has to deal with the fact that there are a whole lot of different laws that they would have to go through in order to sign us, and then every single show we'd have to have the Baopi. Every single show we'd have to have. It's just a hassle.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's true.
So I mean, and that's how it is. And plus, all these labels here are under this Tai-He umbrella. It's like a major corporation here. They bought Maybe Mars. They bought Ruby Eyes. They bought DOG.
Kind of recently, right?
Yeah, they own all of them.
Yeah.
And all of them don't accept. They cannot accept foreigners. And then also we sing political stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard. So I mean, my point with all that was, one tour outside of China brings us so many more opportunities than 3 years living here and performing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, we did one tour of Europe, and then we get like requests to go and play Rebellion Festival in Blackpool or Punk Rock Bowling in Las Vegas. You know, it's just the doors are open over there, and it's just easier to get by.
Yeah.
So.
Would you ever relocate because of that?
I don't know, because you know, America's such a mess right now. I'm not attracted to what's going on over there on so many levels, social levels, economic levels. It's just crazy. I mean, we had Trump. That happened. You know, that happened.
Yeah.
And that happened because the people wanted it. It's just what's going on.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, in a lot of ways, I love China. I really do. You know, I've been here for so long. But would it make things easier for the band, for us artistically, to go to live somewhere else? Maybe. But the other part of my life, would I be able to have my job or anything like that? I don't know. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell. All I know is right now it's not an attractive place to go to in the United States.
How about you guys? Do you think about relocating ever?
Well, at some point I might have to return to Ireland, but to live and work there, I don't really know. I don't think so. I've kind of set myself up to either, you know, travel for quite some time, or stay in China, or stay in Asia, depending.
Yeah, same for me, I would say. One day I would probably have to, well, not have to, but I would probably want to go back.
Yeah.
For me, it's now, 7.5 years in China. I don't know. I really don't know.
I think the only thing that would bring me back is family. That's about it.
Yeah, that's definitely a big reason.
Sure.
Because I mean, it really helps. I mean, now with COVID, everything, you know, you're getting cabin fever. I mean, it's really hard. But you know, we would tour every summer. We would always go back, and it'd be very lengthy tours. It'd be like 60 shows, right? And so that, you know, that would suffice. You know what I mean? It'd be okay. But now,
It's a different world.
it is.
So I have a very specific question. On the new album, Smokestack, is that 1989? Is that a Public Enemy reference?
No, that was about the Tiananmen Square tank man.
Of course it was.
Public Enemy. I love Public Enemy.
Yeah.
But that is our protest song for Hong Kong.
Yeah. Yeah, this new album is very, very pointed with.
You know, because we feel so the album before this was Monster Vision.
Yeah.
And that was all about U.S. politics. A little bit of Chinese in there.
Yeah.
And it just felt kind of wrong to be a political punk band in probably the most politically weird country in the world. Yeah. And not reference it.
Yeah.
And not say anything about it. That just isn't. It feels very disingenuous, right? So we, you know, and we live it. We're under this thumb all the time. So it was about time to do it. You know?
Yeah.
And we knew the risk, and we still know the risk, but it's, you know, it had to be said.
I guess let's wrap it up with like, what are your future plans for the band, for yourself, for your life?
Well, I guess we're going, once all of the restrictions let up, we're going to go back to San Pedro and record with Mike Watt, because we recorded the last one with him.
Yeah.
And just continue to release music and, make new friends.
Cool.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Coming after you.
All right, why don't you guys cut?
I'm Western Toilet. Talking to me?